Starting off, we see our trio checking out Niagara Falls and Ben messing with the watch. When Gwen asks what he's doing exactly, Ben tells them he was trying to figure out how Ben 10,000 was able to change him into different aliens by hitting the dial. Activating the watch, he hits down the dial, changing into gray matter, and begins thinking for a moment before stating that he thinks he's got it. Ben hits the dial, changing into heat blast, looking disappointed. Didn't work, I was going for Wildvine, and hits the Omnitrix symbol again. He'd changed into Wild Mutt, which caused the man to fall off the boat like in the show. And hitting the symbol, trying to go for Rip Jaws, Ben ends up as Accelerate, to which he sighs and says, "Good enough," before diving in and grabbing the guy before he started kicking his legs in the water, causing them to rise above the water and stopping on a stone. The man says he doesn't mean to be ungrateful, but then asks how they would get back onto the boat. To which Accelerate then speeds across the water and up the side of the boat onto the deck they were on originally and setting him down. Ben then goes back to playing with the watch again. Hitting the symbol again, he looked annoyed, going, "Oh, now you give me Rip Jaws," before trying again. We cut to later on where Ben had timed out and was waiting for the watch to recharge, tapping his foot impatiently while also eating a bowl of ice cream with Max and Gwen. The episode continues on as normally, except with a tweak. It is a new character working with Vilgax. Fans of the actual series may know them as Siphon, whom is a loyal follower of Vilgax. As they had grabbed Ben from the gondola lift, Ben had hit the symbol again, changing into gray matter, trying to escape. When Vilgax grabbed Ben, he hit the symbol again, getting Buzzshock, who zapped him, making Vilgax step back and growl about Ben having another transformation, and seeming to have figured out how to change forms while the watch is active. And while fighting, the lift breaks, causing Max and Gwen to begin to fall. Ben hits the symbol again, hoping for anything that worked, and this time managed to get Stinkfly, who then flew over, grabbing the two of them before the lift crashed. After making sure they were safe, he hit the symbol again, changing into Cannonbolt this time, and tells them he's going after Vilgax and his crony, as he then curls into a ball and shoots off down the road. We see Max taking something that had been hidden inside the rust bucket, calling it a null void projector, and stating they should be able to use it to take down Vilgax, before we then cut to Siphon and Vilgax looking for Ben, who'd timed out. Spotting Max and Gwen, Vilgax said to go after them because the boy would come to them willingly. The watch lit up green from where Ben had been hiding, and so he changed into Diamond Head like in the show, and he jumped at Vilgax as Max pulled the trigger and a portal opened up and pulled Ben and the two villains inside of itself, with Max calling out for Ben. We continue the episode normally from there, with Ben getting away from Vilgax and Siphon, and Gwen convincing Max to let her go instead so that he could keep the portal open. We cut back to Ben, who was avoiding the two villains, while they had a swarm of flying creatures attacking him, and cycling through aliens to avoid and fend them off. Though he was caught as Heat Blast, he hit the symbol, changing into Buzzshock and zapping the creature, making them let go of him. Changing again, he'd gotten Stinkfly, who began to fly away while shooting goo at them, hitting one of the creatures in the mouth, making it turn away in disgust and fly off, while others still came after him, and so he'd hit it again, changing into Cannonbolt this time, and bounced around on several stones. Max has Gwen suiting up in a high-tech outfit, telling her about the homing device, and that he could only keep the portal open for maybe 10 minutes, and hands her a blaster, telling her it's for anything that's not Ben. Nodding, Gwen then goes into the portal to go and find Ben. Flying around inside the null void, Gwen notices a Stink as a familiar form flies up, hugging her. It was Ben. Well, as Stinkfly anyway. And he was talking about how glad he was to see her, though someone flew up quickly grabbing her away. It was Siphon who grabbed her, so that she couldn't fight back. Gwen tries a spell, but she couldn't manage it while struggling, since just saying it wouldn't be enough at that level she was currently. She'd still need the stance and gestures. Ben tells them to let her go, though Siphon says to surrender the Omnitrix to Lord Vilgax and I'll let your little girlfriend go. Seeing no other options, Ben agrees as Vilgax then changes Ben back to human form before throwing him onto the ground and using the device on his back to rip the Omnitrix from Ben. It looked incredibly painful as it was being ripped from his arm, and he screamed out with Siphon grinning, stating that, "I do so love watching the master work." Gwen stomps onto Siphon's foot, causing him to let go as she then blasted at the machine, causing it to malfunction and making the pod with the Omnitrix go flying, as she grabbed Ben and the two flew after it, with Vilgax growling that Siphon was useless, as the latter apologized for their disgrace. When they catch the pod and try to fly off to the exit, Vilgax and Siphon block their path, demanding the Omnitrix. Ben tells her to toss it because getting home was more important. We see Gwen hesitating before sighing and looking at the two villains. "You want it? Fetch!" she calls out, throwing something off as Vilgax flies after it, with Siphon remaining to block their path. Though now that she was free, Gwen casted a duplication mirage, making 2 copies of herself and Ben, as they all headed off in different directions, with Siphon going after whom he'd assumed was the correct ones. When Siphon grabbed at them, they vanished, showing that they were a mirage, as Ben and Gwen were just about out of the null void, with Ben complimenting Gwen, telling her, "Nice moves, lucky girl." To which she responds, "Thanks, but I'm only able to make 2 copies so far," as the two of them then flew through the portal, and it closed behind them. We see Vilgax towering over Siphon, glaring, as the latter then bows to the former and apologizes once again for his failures, as the villain then spoke, telling them it didn't matter as they now had the Omnitrix, only for the pod to open up, revealing that it was an explosive from Gwen's belt, which promptly exploded in their face, causing them to growl out, "Tennyson!" in anger. We see both Ben and Gwen laughing about what they'd done as Max hugs them, glad to see that the two of them were okay. Ben sniffs his wrist and made a sour face, stating, "I really need to wash before I put that thing back on," making Gwen and Max laugh as the pod with the Omnitrix sat open beside them, waiting for Ben once more.